right, let me get this camera adjusted. How's everybody doing? This is Steven here from Powell's Power Ups, and I have a lightsaber overview video for a client of mine. This is Chris's Luke Hero lightsaber from KR Sabers. I think this is the original 2015 model, but I could be wrong because I know the PCB that's inside of the control box here said 2017 on it, so don't quote me on all that stuff, but he had a Goth master chassis and several of the components and parts and sent it to me for an installation. So Chris, this is your overview video. Make sure you sit down, get comfortable, watch the entire video. That way you know how to handle this properly. I'm gonna go over everything I did with it. I'm gonna go over everything to do and what not to do. That way you don't damage anything. But it's done, and here is the installation. So I got in, like I was talking to you about, I got in the pair of pliers I needed today so that I could put this triangular shaped ring on here on the pommel, so that that's on there now, ready to go. Something to note, your blade plug, right? Your blade plug on this lightsaber sticks up a little bit. It does not sit flush. That is because inside of the emitter, you have a PCB holder. We have our stock version 2 NPXL connector in there, but you got a little 3D printed holder holding it, right? Which sits up about yay high. So that prevents this from sitting down all the way. So that's just something, and this is metal. There's not really a lot I can do there. I don't have any kind of machine to cut that. I suppose you could sand it. It would take you a long time though to sand down, you know, a 1/4 inch or a 1/2 inch, but yeah, so that's why the blade plug doesn't sit down all the way, but that's just part of it. So as you can see down in there, you do have your stock version 2 NPXL connector, your 5 LEDs on there, which just mirror the main blade whenever there's no blade inserted. This part here unthreads, but don't unthread it. The emitter also unthreads, but don't unthread it. The only place that you unthread it, there's 2 places we'll start with, is here, right? And you do this slowly. This just kind of exposes the crystal chamber. So this is the Goth, what do they call this? Master chassis, crystal chamber chassis that you sent me. But basically, inside of there, you can see slightly with a little bit of light, we have your custom Saber Shop 7-pin connector PCB that you sent me, right? And then you have this side of it. You have the pins in there and the flat side here, and that's how these connect to give your emitter and your blade its power and effects. So I'm gonna set that aside. I'm gonna set this aside. So you got your PCB on top there. Down inside of your crystal chamber, you do have your 2 crystals. I have green LEDs inside of those crystals, so they illuminate green. You'll see here in a little bit. The chassis, though, which goes down in here, is there's nothing to secure it in place or to hold it in place, really. There's no set screws or anything like that. It kind of just sits in there free floating. The only thing that prevents it from moving around is you have some wires that come out of the chassis into the control box, which operate your buttons, okay? And you have LEDs behind your green and red arrows there, which you'll see momentarily when I light it up. But your control box, the top of the clamp card here is your power, and then the bottom end is your auxiliary, okay? But just be mindful, like I was saying, this chassis, there's nothing that really holds it in place. You'll see that it kind of moves a little bit. Just leave it alone, don't mess with it. Whenever you put this part on, it kind of compresses the chassis into the lightsaber hilt, and it won't move around at that point. But whenever you have it unscrewed and out and about showing it off, it does move around a little bit. Now you don't want to like over twist this, because you would sever the wires that go to your switches and your LEDs. So make sure you just find the middle, kind of the middle point there. You'll be able to tell it twists and then it stops, and it twists this far and then it stops. So just kind of keep it there in the middle. To get out the bottom end, right? So let's say we want to access our Profi board, which by the way, we got a Profi board in here, version 2.2 with the latest operating system, version 6.7, which runs with FET263's prop file for button operations. So I have a print off with all of the instructions on it of how to operate the lightsaber that I'll include it. I don't have it printed off right now, or I'll show you, but I include that with all of my installs. So I have that'll come with it. It'll tell you how to operate it. 2 buttons set up there. So without further ado, we can I'll light everything up and turn it on. So basically your pummel unscrews, okay? You can take that off, which by the way, you also have your screen accurate pummel that only has one tiny hole, so not super great for sound venting. So I have this one on there, which has a lot of holes for sound venting. But you take the pummel off, and then inside there you can see your speaker. So your speaker is actually a removable pod, and there's this little handlebar on there. You can grab the little bar and you can pull the speaker pod straight out. Okay, so we see on the back of the speaker pod here, we have two little magnets that line up with the two magnets in there to help keep it in place. And then you have those two little pins right there, your speaker positive, negative, which go into the bottom down there, those two little holes. So whenever you're putting this pod back in, you gotta line up these pins with those little holes down there. And then you just kind of find that sweet spot and you'll feel it go in. And again, once you put the pummel on and this piece on, your chassis will be compressed and held together. But the speaker pod comes out, okay? And be careful, don't puncture that speaker with your finger. Speakers are kind of delicate in that sense, so make sure you don't poke that with your finger. Just hold on to the handlebar here. But your speaker pod comes out so that you can access your Profi boards, USB port. It's kind of hard to see, there it is. USB port, you got the SD card in there, you got a kill switch to turn it on and off, and then you have your recharge port, okay? So you have a fixed battery inside here. It is non-removable. You have to use a charger to charge it. So I have here the standard wall plug-in charger for the lithium-ion batteries. Whenever you plug it into the wall and the lightsaber, there will be a red LED that comes on. Red indicates that it's charging, and then green indicates that it's fully charged. It takes about 3 to 4 hours to fully charge a completely dead battery, and I recommend you drain your battery all the way down before you charge it again to prolong its lifespan. So because this is a 1.3 millimeter recharge port, you do have an adapter here that goes on the end of your charger so that you can plug in to and charge this. I would suggest holding the chassis here to support it with this hand as you plug in with this hand. So you'll just plug in like that, you'll plug it into the wall, charge it. When you're done, just pull it out slowly, okay? You'll notice that sometimes the recharge port will go in a little bit. That's okay when you plug it in. Just make sure when you pull out, you pull slow, and it'll actually kind of pull it back out into place where it's supposed to be. It can't go too far the other way because the battery's right on the other side of this switches here. So like I said, we got the little speaker holes down there, the two little holes. We got a recharge port, and we have your kill switch. So right now it's in the off position, which is left, and when you turn it to the right position, it turns on. Now you'll know you have power because your green LEDs inside of your crystals will begin pulsing, and your red and green arrows will begin blinking. Now you won't hear any sound though because our speaker pod's not plugged in, so that's okay. You're not gonna hear a boot sound, but we're gonna put this back together now. So we're gonna line up those little pins with the little speaker pod holes, okay? We're gonna put on our pummel. Okay, and then from this point, if you want to, you can show off your lightsaber, okay? So whenever you ignite it, your LEDs in here are just gonna do an audio flicker. So there's just a few functions to show you that it works. I will put in a blade here in a little bit and show you that it works with a blade and everything. But as you can see, your LEDs here do their flickering back and forth on the red and green arrows. The crystals pulse whenever the lightsaber is not ignited, and when you ignite it, it does an audio flicker. They are just traditional green LEDs inside of there. Same thing here. These don't change color, but your blade will. Your blade will change color to whatever you want. But these four LEDs, the red, green, green, and green, will always be that color. They're just traditional style LEDs. That's what fit down inside of these crystals here that you sent me, 5 millimeter ones. So to put this back on, I'm just gonna take my time and slowly go over, right, and then screw this back on. Okay. And you'll feel it start to get close. Don't over tighten it. I would suggest just, you know, get it tight and then leave it alone. So you do also have gesture functionality, so you can twist it back and forth to turn it on and twist it back and forth to turn it off without having to use the buttons. Like that there. And that turns it off. So now just to show you, I will just pop in a blade. I got a test blade here, just a shorter NeoPixel one. It is a pretty shallow, it's pretty shallow in the emitter there, so make sure you get this nice and tight against the pins. Whenever you put your blade in, do not, I repeat, do not twist the blade as you're down inside of there, because if you do, those little pins in there, you could accidentally bend them over. They're spring loaded, so all you gotta do is push the blade against them like so. But if you twist, you can possibly bend them and damage the pins, so you definitely don't want to do that. You just want to apply pressure against the pins as you tighten down the set screw right here to hold your blade in. So there's just a NeoPixel test blade just to show you that it works and that it's beautiful.
Red, orange, red, dark orange, orange, gold, yellow, green.
So there's just showing you that you can put it in a color change mode and rotate the hill and change the colors. I programmed it. I don't know how long the blade is. I don't know how long the blade is that you have, but I programmed it for about a 32-inch blade, right at around 120 pixels, or maybe I put in 132. I can't remember. But if you need to, you can, like I said, you can access the Profi board here. You can plug into it. You do not need to remove the SD card. Whenever you plug into that Profi board, the SD card contents will pop up on your computer momentarily if you're just patient and wait for them. There is a blank, or not a blank, there is a configuration file, a copy of it on the SD card to kind of help you as a base if you want to add more fonts and blade styles and things like that. Or if, like we talked about there, the pixels, if you need to change the amount of them, you can scroll all the way to the bottom and change that, and then use my tutorial to re-upload the configuration and reprogram the Profi board. But there's you a little, you know, demonstration just showing you that it works and that it's installed. I'll take the blade back out and open it up one more time and show you a close-up of everything, just for all the other folks who might be watching. I really like one thing. I'm not a huge fan of the Luke Hero Saber, but I definitely love the little control box and the little arrows on here blinking back and forth. That's like the coolest thing ever. I love blinkies. So we'll open this back up, which I'm doing slowly. You always want to do that slowly because, like we talked about, that chassis in there is not secured by anything. So you don't want to sever the wires that go up into the control box. So this portion you're just doing very carefully. There we go. So here's you a close-up of your crystal chamber. I don't know if you painted this or whoever painted it. Somebody painted it though, and that paint, they probably did it during a time where there was lots of humidity, and you can see some of the bubbles in the paint, so that's a bummer. But it still looks pretty good. It was already painted when I got it, for those who are curious who were watching the video. I did not paint this chassis. I did install the little copper rod here though. That is part of putting it all together. So there it is. All right, Chris, I hope you enjoy it, man. Whenever you want to turn it back off and store it away for a while, you're not going to play with it for a while, you just take off your pommel, take out that little speaker pod like that, and then just flip your kill switch to the off position, and then you'll see your lights go out. And that's how you know that it is off. And you can put your little speaker pod back in, put your pommel back on, and this part here. All right, so thank you, Chris, for choosing me to do your install. I hope you enjoy the lightsaber. I will send you this overview video shortly for your review, and then if you like it, everything's okay, I can get it boxed up and shipped out to you ASAP. Yeah, thank you for choosing me. May the Force be with you.